Hello, this is Mr. Vargas, and this is my Flying Aces Part 2 tutorial. So in Part 1, we made a project that had a little World War II era airplane, and all it did was it moved left and right, but we also added bullets or projectiles, our first project with projectiles. Now we are going to add something to shoot at. We're going to add enemies. So we're going to have an enemy plane that's going to fly down from the top, and if it hits you, game over. But if you manage to shoot it with one of your bullets before it gets to you, then it's game over for the enemy. The enemy will to get destroyed, or in our project, it will just get destroyed. Yeah, it'll get destroyed. It'll disappear. So now, if the plane hits you, you're gonna go to game over. So we're gonna go to a game over screen. So we've done this a few times in previous tutorials, but I just want to review the steps. So I used Pixlr to do my screens. I mentioned before, but the image editor inside of FlowLab doesn't really support text, and it's a little limiting. So Pixlr is simple enough, but it gives us enough control to be able to make a decent game over screen. So I already made my game over screen, so this is the one I'm using in my game. These are just some other ones from different games. If you have one from a different game and it's the right size and everything, you're free to use it. But I just want to go over how to create a new one, just in case anyone forgot. I'm gonna do this pretty quick. Just gonna hit create new. Give it a name, game over, and pick the right size for the width and the height. They're both gonna be 320. You know, the reason it's 320 is because the grids are 32 pixels, and our game, the default size for games is 10, and we never changed it. So if you do 10 times 32, you get to 320. Then you can select the background. They give you some choices, but if you don't like those choices, you can just click on any of them and then just pick what you want. So, you know, you can pick like a black one, for example, and then you can just add text. So I click the text tool, click add text, change the color of the text. So game over. You know, you might want to move this like near the top and then add another smaller text underneath here to say like press enter to start, right? Press enter, and you can move that down and change the size to make it smaller. So we can move that down here. I'm not gonna do the whole thing because I've done this before. You can click in there and finish writing. I already have one saved on my desktop. I'm actually so just press enter to start. You could align it. You could do, you know, add some little details to it if you want. When you're done, you do file, save. And what file save really does is download. It downloads it, so you can download it to your desktop, and then you can have it for this game. So I'm gonna close that. I already have it downloaded. I don't need to do that. And let's go into our game. And the first thing we're gonna do, let's just get it out of the way. Let's get that game over screen in here, so then we can get to the real, you know, important stuff for this lesson, which is the enemy and how to spawn enemies. So to do the game over screen, we do a new level. We just call it game over. We load to load the level, and then we're going to add that image as an object. So we're gonna click in the top left corner and hit create. For the type of this object, we're gonna just keep calling it game over just to make things easy for us. And we're gonna edit this sprite. Instead, we're gonna delete that image, and we're gonna upload the screen, the game over screen that we created in you know, in that step that I just went over. So upload the game over screen, press OK, and our game over screen is done. Actually, there's one more thing. We need to code this game over screen, because remember, when we get to the screen, you want to be able to press enter to try again. So let's actually hit edit to go back to this screen, and this will let me edit this object, because remember, this whole screen is an object. So we're gonna go to behaviors, and we're gonna do press any key, or actually enter. There is no any key. I wish there was an any key, but there doesn't seem to be an any key in here. So I clicked on change key, and we're gonna press enter. So when they press enter, we want to restart the game because they've lost. They want to give it another shot. So we go to game flow, and we use a restart game block. So when you press down on that, restart game, and now we are done with our game over screen. Now let's get to the real stuff. Let's load our first level, and let's create this enemy. So click somewhere near the top of the level, because that's where the enemies are going to come from. We're going to hit create. We're going to call it enemy plane. And we're going to go to physics, select movable. I guess we could take off affected by gravity. Let's go back over here, and let's draw our plane. So I'm going to delete this block. I'm going to change my grid size because that 4.0 is too like wide. I won't be able to get any details in there. I'll go with that 1. I'm going to use a black pencil tool to do the outline of the plane. And our character plane was pointed upwards, but since the enemy plane is going to be going downwards, let's draw the enemy plane facing down. You know, this is going to look a little rough. I'm just doing it. I'm sure you don't want to watch me draw a very detailed image over here. And if you want to use a different image program and then upload it, you can do that. Maybe just make sure that the size is 32 by 32 if you want to use Pixlr. I think this image editor is actually better for like touching up images that you've bought in from other programs. But it's fine. It's fine in a pinch. So let's fill this in with red. You can do any colors you want, obviously. I'm just picking some random colors. I'm going to do some green on the wings. Ooh. That one looks a little uneven. Let me go back and kind of fix this with the reds a little bit. All right, now let's do a cockpit. So we'll do a blue for that. Something like that. All right, and that's fine for our purposes. So that's our enemy plane. And now let's code the plane's movement. So this enemy plane, when the world starts, we want it to be flying downwards. So we want to set its velocity. So we could do it once, right at the beginning of this airplane's creation. So once we're going to set its velocity. So velocity is under properties. Yep. And you need a number block because you're trying to set the velocity to a number. So let's go to logic and math, and let's drag this number block right here. And we're going to set it to 5. It has to be positive 5 because if you remember, positives on the y-axis in FlowLab, y is positive when you're going down. It's negative when you're going up. Right? The origin is in the top corner. This is 0, 0. And as you go down, y gets more negative. Y gets more positive. It's the opposite of what you're used to in math class, where y would get negative when you go down. The opposite in FlowLab and in other programs too that I've seen. All right, so this goes to the in, and that connects to the y. Okay, so 5 gets sent to the y velocity. So let's test this out, and you can see the plane moves down. It actually knocked me out. That's fine for now. So that's airplane movement. So now we need to code the making the airplane, because see the problem is right now if I test in my game, when I shoot bullets at it, look, the bullets just kind of bounce. They just slow it down. They don't actually destroy the plane. So we want the bullets to destroy the plane. So let's go in here. Let's do edit. Let's go to behaviors, and we're going to add a collision. So collision with a bullet. So when this airplane collides a bullet, let's move this up here, we're going to destroy ourselves, all right? So that's under components, destroyer. So when there's a collision with bullet, destroy. So let's see how that works. Ooh, that looked kind of weird. The bullet just flew off. Let's restart that again. Huh. So our bullets are flying off. Let's see if we can do anything about that. Let's go to physics. So I actually cut a little piece of the video out because I was just trying a few different things. So I figured out how to make the bullets work without bouncing off. So if you go to library and you go to bullets, and then physics, what you want to have, this is what you want to have selected. So I think by default it was solid, and by being solid, it was bouncing off the planes. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take off is solid, but then the bullets were just flying right through the plane. So then what you want to do is click enable collisions. So you want the bullet to be movable, you want it to not be solid, but you do want to enable collisions. If you do all this, then the bullet should work as intended. So you see how it just flew through the airplane and the airplane got deleted. So that is the code for the bullet. Let me just bring you back inside the airplane, just so you can see that code again. So collision with bullet destroys itself, and this is just setting the speed. So the last thing I want to do for today is I want to spawn more enemies, because right now our game only has one enemy airplane right at the beginning, and we want to have multiple enemies. So we're gonna actually do this code inside of the player. So inside of the player, we are going, so just so you know what code this is actually garbage code. I should just delete this. Let me just delete this real quick. This is me testing a feature out that I decided not to use. It was basically to keep the airplane inside of the playing field. So let me, sometimes moving this code is weird. Like I can move that, but then if I try to move this, it moves too much. All right, I'm not adding anything new. I'm just moving stuff around just to give myself a little more room. All right, so the code to spawn more enemies. We're gonna use a timer to control how often a new enemy gets spawned. We're gonna set the delay. We could leave it actually at 10. 10 is 1 second. That's fine. Let's do repeat forever. And so this every second it's gonna activate. This out bubble is gonna activate. It's gonna do something. So what do we want it to do? We want it to spawn. So under components, there is a block called spawn. And if you click on it, you can decide what to spawn. So we're gonna spawn enemy planes. And then you get to decide which coordinates it spawns at. So if you think about it, you want this plane to always spawn at the top of the screen. Well, the top of the screen, remember the origin of your game is in the top left corner. It's 0, 0. So this line up here is y equals 0. This line all the way at the top. So we want the y to always be 0. Now, thankfully, you don't even have to connect anything in there because that's the default. The default is 0. So we could leave the y empty. The x, however, you don't always want the plane to start in the same spot on the vertical axis. You want it to like come at different places. So for that, we're gonna use a random block. All right, so that's under logic and math, random, and the min, I guess you could leave it at 0, but I'm gonna set it to 10. So 10 is 10 pixels from the left. I just don't want the plane to be like hidden, like appear and it's like half hidden, outside of the level. So by doing 10, you're moving 10 pixels over, and that should be good. And now, if you remember from when we made our end screen, our game's width is 320. So let's do 310 to give us 10 pixels from the right. So it gives us a little buffer on both sides so that the plane doesn't spawn and it's like hanging outside of your level. You could just see like its wing or something. So when this timer goes off, we want it to create a new random number between 10 and 310, and then we want to send that number to X. Now, another thing I want to do is every time the timer goes off, is I want to actually do spawn, because spawn doesn't just work on its own. Something has to tell it to spawn. So the timer is generating a number, a new X location, and it's telling this spawn block to do its job, which is to spawn enemy planes. So let's press OK. Let's press OK. Let's test our game. And you see we're destroying the planes. If one of them hits me, it should do game over, which it just did not do because we haven't coded that yet. We need to code it so that when an enemy plane hits us, we lose. But we see that the cloning is working. That's what we're testing right now. It's cloning, or spawning, I should say. It's spawning every second. It's spawning a new enemy. The enemy is coming at a different X location. All right, so let's actually code the destruction of the player. Right, so when an enemy hits the player, so we're gonna add a collision block. When there is a collision with enemy plane, we want to go to the game over screen. So let's go to game flow. Let's go to next level. And then let's select game over, the game over screen. And we're gonna connect this from the hit bubble to the goal. Now let's test this again. Actually, let me hit OK. I don't like testing with all that code in my way. All right, so we just make sure the shooting's working, the spawn's working. All right, let's get hit, and it does game over. So that's it. That's it for part 2. We're going to add some water. Right now it looks blue underneath. I want to actually add a water background. We're gonna add a title screen, add sounds. This game really needs sounds. It's pretty dull, being completely silent, and a few other things we're gonna add in the next part. But that's it for today. Thank you.